The city of Dortmund lay beneath a soft drizzle that morning, the kind that dampened cobblestones and blurred the outlines of tram rails. Herman tightened the straps of his worn backpack as he stood at the station square, his eyes drawn to the faint mist rolling from the Ruhr Valley. His friends gathered around him, laughing, sharing jokes, and carrying bags filled with camping gear. For weeks, they had spoken about escaping the noise of the city. They longed for a night under the trees, away from the neon glow of the streets and the endless hum of traffic. It was not far, just a forest on the edge of the Sauerland Hills, but it promised silence and shadows that the city could never provide. Herman felt a strange pull in his chest, a mixture of excitement, but also something heavier, as though the air itself warned him. He brushed the feeling aside, telling himself it was nothing more than nerves. The train ride was filled with chatter and the rattling of wheels on iron. The further they traveled, the quieter the towns became, until houses gave way to meadows, and meadows to a line of dark trees that stretched like a wall against the horizon. When they arrived, the group hiked through a narrow trail leading deeper into the woods. The ground was soft with moss, the air cool and damp. Birds scattered at their steps, and the canopies swallowed the light above. Each mile seemed to drag them away from the world they knew, into something older, untouched. By evening, they had pitched their tents beside a narrow stream. A fire flickered, the flames fighting the rising fog. The laughter of his friends echoed through the trees, but Herman kept glancing toward the forest edge. It seemed darker than it should have been, as though the night had arrived there first. When the last train's whistle echoed faintly in the distance, Herman realized there was no turning back. Whatever lay in those woods, they would face it together. But deep inside, a quiet voice whispered that this journey would not end as they had planned. As the fire burned low, the forest began to change. The cheerful voices of Herman's friends faded into murmurs, their laughter replaced by the crackling of branches and the distant call of an owl. The mist grew thicker, clinging to the ground like a shroud, and every shadow seemed to stretch further than it should. Herman sat near the fire, his hands outstretched to the heat. Yet the warmth did not ease the chill creeping along his spine. Across the stream, the trees loomed taller, their trunks twisted, their branches clawing at the sky. He felt as if something unseen waited there, just beyond the veil of darkness. The group tried to keep the mood alive. They told stories, shared bottles, and tossed small sticks into the flames. But each pause between words was filled with silence, so deep it seemed to press upon their ears. Even the insects had quieted, leaving only the rushing water of the stream. At one point, Herman stepped away from the circle, walking toward the sound of the river. The moon broke through the clouds for a moment, casting a pale glow on the current. It should have been beautiful. Instead, the sight unsettled him. The water moved too quickly, foaming against the stones, as though driven by a force stronger than rain. He leaned closer, and that was when he saw it. A reflection in the stream, not his own. Two pale circles of light, like eyes, watching him from across the water. They blinked once, and then the darkness swallowed them whole. Herman stumbled back, his breath caught in his throat. His friends called after him, their voices cutting through the stillness. He forced himself to laugh, to shake his head as though nothing had happened. But inside, his chest tightened with a fear he had never known before. The night had only just begun, and already the forest had shown its face. The fire had sunk to embers, glowing red against the black. Herman lay in his tent, listening to the soft breathing of his companions. Yet sleep refused him. Instead, he stared at the shifting outlines of trees beyond the canvas. Then he heard it, a whisper, faint, carried on the wind. At first, he thought it was the rustling of leaves, but the sound shaped itself into something more deliberate. Words, soft and low, spoken in a tongue he did not understand. They came from across the stream. Herman pressed his ear to the ground, his pulse quickening. The whispers grew clearer, like voices murmuring in unison, never loud, never close, but always there. He dared to open the tent flap. The mist had thickened, curling over the earth like smoke. For a moment, he saw figures moving among the trees. Tall, thin silhouettes, slipping silently between trunks. Their presence froze his blood. He wanted to call out, to wake the others, but the voices hushed as if aware of his gaze. When the wind shifted, the whispers vanished. The forest returned to its silence. Herman crawled back into his tent, trembling. His friends slept on unaware. And so the night dragged on, each minute slower than the last, until dawn finally touched the forest with a dull gray light. The camp awoke to damp clothes and tired eyes. The rain had left the ground soaked, and the mist clung stubbornly to the trees. Herman's friends spoke lightly, laughing at their discomfort, but he noticed how quickly they avoided looking toward the woods. One of them, Lucas, mentioned hearing something in the night. A voice, he said, faint but insistent, as though someone was calling from far away. Another admitted she had dreamt of shapes moving through the fog. They laughed it off, though their smiles were thin. Herman said nothing. He remembered the glowing eyes, the whispers, the shifting figures. To speak it aloud would only bring fear, and fear was already present in their silence. They decided to stay another night, convincing themselves that it was all part of the adventure. They gathered wood, repaired the fire, and tried to keep spirits high. But the forest never warmed to them. The air was colder, the stream louder, and every crow that passed above felt like an omen. As afternoon faded, Herman felt that the forest was watching, waiting, biding its time. By evening, the weather had turned. Clouds rolled in thick and heavy, and thunder grumbled across the hills. The group huddled close to the fire, their faces lit in brief flashes of lightning. The storm grew wild. Rain hammered the tents, and the stream swelled, foaming white. The noise of the water drowned their voices, yet amidst it Herman thought he heard something else. A cry. High and sharp, like the sound of someone in pain. He rose, stepping toward the river's edge. His friends shouted after him, their words lost in the storm. Lightning split the sky, and for an instant he saw it. Across the river, a figure stood among the trees. Tall. Motionless. Its eyes gleamed in the dark. The thunder crashed, and the figure was gone. But the fear remained, growing stronger with each heartbeat. Night came again, darker than before. The storm raged overhead, but within the forest there was another sound. Footsteps. Slow. Measured. Moving just beyond the fire's glow. The group gathered close, speaking in hurried whispers. Then, without warning, Lucas stood. He claimed he had seen a light among the trees, a lantern perhaps, or someone in need. Before anyone could stop him, he strode across the stream and disappeared into the mist. They called his name, their voices breaking with panic. But only the storm answered. Minutes passed, then an hour, and still he did not return. Fear consumed the camp. No one dared to follow. The fire sputtered, the rain poured, and the forest closed in tighter. Herman sat frozen, staring into the night, convinced that Lucas had not gone alone. Sleep became impossible. The survivors huddled together, their eyes fixed on the forest. Shapes moved at the edge of the mist, shifting between trees. Sometimes one, sometimes many, always watching. Each time the fire dimmed, the figures crept closer. Herman threw wood upon the flames again and again, but the shadows never retreated far. Their silence was unbearable, heavier than any roar. In the early hours, he thought he saw Lucas among them. His shape, his walk, his face pale in the gloom. But the moment he blinked, the image dissolved into shadow. His friends begged him not to look again. The forest had claimed one of them, and it was not finished. Another day passed in dread. Food was untouched, conversations empty. They spoke only of leaving, yet the path back seemed uncertain. The forest had twisted upon itself, trails fading into fog. When darkness returned, so did the whispers. Louder now, clearer. They circled the camp like a chant, always out of reach, never close enough to understand. One by one, Herman's companions covered their ears, trembling. But he could not block the sound. It burrowed into his mind, pulling him toward the trees. He fought against it, gripping the earth, whispering prayers beneath his breath. The night stretched long, unbroken, until the fire burned itself low and the whispers sank into silence once more. By dawn, 2 more were gone. Their tents lay empty, their bags untouched, as though they had simply risen and walked into the fog. No one had seen them leave. No one had heard a sound. Only Herman remained, alone beside the dying fire, his heart hollow with dread. He called their names, his voice cracking, but the forest gave no answer. The stream roared with unnatural force, and the mist rose higher, wrapping itself around him like a noose. He stumbled through the camp, desperate to find a path out, but every step led him deeper, further, until even the memory of the trail was lost. And always, behind him, footsteps followed. The storm broke with fury, lightning tearing across the sky. Herman ran through the forest, his breath ragged, his mind fractured by fear. The whispers had become voices, the voices had become cries, and the cries now roared inside his skull. He stumbled to the river's edge. The water was swollen, black, its current wild. And there, across the torrent, the figure waited.
Tall, thin,
its eyes burning white. Herman froze, every muscle locked. The forest fell silent. Even the storm hushed for a single moment. Then, slowly, the figure raised its arm and pointed at him. The ground shook. The water surged. And in that instant, Herman understood that nothing in his life would ever be the same again. That was the moment, the single heartbeat of terror that would remain with him forever.